IDP IELTS in Australia. It's great to see so many of you joining us today. Thank you so much for connecting with us, and thank you for choosing IELTS. In today's Ask Me Anything edition of the IELTS from Start to Finish series, world-renowned IELTS expert Don Oliver will be providing answers to 40 questions you asked through social media. And then we will move on to our Q&A session. So please remember to submit your questions in the Zoom Q&A and Facebook comments box, and we'll try to answer as many as we can today. The Facebook recording will be available right after the session, so worry not, as you can catch back on anything you learned today. We have a jam-packed hour ahead of us, so let's get cracking. Over to you, Don.
Thanks very much, Kavita, and welcome to everybody who's joined us to ask me anything within reason. There are quite a few questions here, and I've looked at them all, and I've thought very deeply about them all, and I hope I can share a few useful ideas about them all. So let's begin immediately. The first question we got from one of our listeners quite a while ago now is a very important one. It's all about reading. We're going to go through these questions in this order: reading, and then writing, and then speaking, and then finally talk about IELTS preparation in general terms. But looking at reading, the question is, how do I use the skimming and scanning techniques in a reading test? It's a good question. Let me first of all remind you what skimming and scanning are. Skimming is what you do normally in your first language. It's what you do when you are looking at a newspaper, for example, the front page of a newspaper. You are looking very quickly to see if there's anything that is interesting. And in order to say if it is interesting, you need to get a general idea of what it's about. So you will look at the first line, you look at the heading for sure. You will probably look at the first line in one or two paragraphs. You won't read every paragraph, but you'll get a fair idea of what this is about. And you'll say to yourself, well, do I want to read this or not? It's what you do normally now in your own first language. Scanning is a different process, and that is where you're looking for a specific piece of information. It's like what you would do if you're looking at the same newspaper trying to find the football score, right? You're looking for the name of your club. You're looking for the date, maybe. And you're looking for a number. You want to know how many goals were scored. That is scanning. So in an IELTS test, what we have to do is, first of all, look at the questions. This is an important part of a good technique in doing a reading test, because the questions will give you a general idea of what the passage is about. Don't look at the questions too carefully, but get a general idea and then go to the skimming. As I said, you'll look at the heading. There might be an illustration or a picture. You'll look at that. You'll look at the first line of the first paragraph, second paragraph. You look at the conclusion, the last paragraph. You'll be focusing on words that are important words that carry meaning, like nouns and verbs. You won't be too worried about in or on or with or by or at or the. That's skimming. Then you'll go back to the questions and you'll look at the first question and you'll try and work out, well, what is the key word here? What is that piece of information that I'm really looking for? Like the football score, remember? It might be a place. It might be a person. It might be a date. Once you've found one or two key words, then think about other ways of expressing those words, synonyms. Because in the reading test, very often the questions will use words that mean the same as the answers as they are written in the passage. Okay, so we're looking for synonyms of the keywords, and that is scanning. The whole purpose of skimming and scanning, I think I said scamming earlier on, is to make your reading quicker. And the more quickly you can read, the more likely you are to get a better score, because you will be able to answer questions and spend a bit more time on the difficult questions. Just one more thing about this. IELTS tests a whole range from no English to perfect English. And that means that some of those questions in the reading and in the listening will be for someone who has perfect English. So relax. You're not expected to be able to answer every question. In order to get your band 7 in a reading test for academic reading, you need to get towards about 30 questions right. Okay, let's move on. Question 2. How to master matching the headings section in the IELTS reading test. This is a common question. The IELTS reading test has lots of different types of questions. Some of those questions are fairly straightforward. They might be a multiple choice question, or they might be a short answer question. When did this happen? Answer 2010. Sometimes they might be a quite difficult question like, is this statement true or false or not given? And this question that we're looking at now, matching a heading to a paragraph, is quite a difficult one. What we're asking is this phrase, is this heading a good summary of what is in the paragraph? Now you can practice this. You can make your own summary. When you read, be an active reader. You read a paragraph and think, okay, I am the IELTS examiner. How would I summarize this paragraph that I just read in a few words? This is a good idea because it starts to get you thinking the way the examiner is thinking. You will see that a particular word, for example, might be repeated several times in that paragraph. You might see that the final sentence in that paragraph sums up what was being talked about. This is what you need to do. When you are matching a heading to a paragraph, I suggest you start matching a heading to the shortest paragraph, because that will be probably the easiest one. And don't be afraid to change, because you might say, oh, A is a good match for paragraph B, but after reading paragraph C, you might want to change it. Well, do that. Keep that in mind as well. Okay, let's continue. Question number 3. This one's a very polite one. Hello, sir. Someone suggested to me to use uppercase for all the answers. In other words, to write in a pencil and paper test, write in capital letters. Is this a good idea? Yes, it is. It is a good idea. It's especially a good idea if your handwriting is not very good. Capital letters are not important when we assess reading and listening. In other words, you can write Japan with a small j. You can write a person's name, Smith, with a small s. It doesn't matter. It's still marked correct. So you can use all capital letters as well. You can also write your essay in all capital letters. But don't mix up capital letters and lowercase in strange ways in your writing test, because that will affect punctuation. The reader won't know if that's the end or the start of a sentence or the end of a sentence. But in the listening and reading, definitely use uppercase if your handwriting is not good. In the essays, the writing test, use uppercase if you want to, if your handwriting is not very good. And of course, if you're doing the computer test, you can use uppercase, but it's probably not an issue because we won't be confused by handwriting. Okay, let's look at question number 4. This question is a very big question. How can you manage your time in the best way? Well, in each part of the test, there are different challenges about time management. In the reading and the listening, you have 40 questions, and in the reading, you have 1 hour to do that. In the listening, you have 40 questions, and the recording is not played twice, so you have to concentrate all the time. I would recommend in sequence, starting with reading, try and practice the skimming and scanning so that you can read more quickly. Don't waste too much time on a difficult question. As I said, you can leave that one. Maybe that's for a band 9 person. Come back to those questions. Guess the answer if you want. For 3 passages in an academic reading test, try and stick to 20 minutes for each one of those. In the listening, use your time carefully by using the time that they give you before the recording to look at the questions. Don't waste time going back and looking at your answers, because you should be spending that time looking at the next set of questions. In the writing, spend 40 minutes on task 2 and only 20 minutes on task 1. And make sure you leave a little bit of time at the end to check your work. This is an important part of time management. And in the speaking, you don't really have to worry too much, because the examiner will handle the time for you. We'll ask the next question. We'll tell you when to start. We'll tell you when to stop. Okay, that's my best advice about managing time. And you can practice these things. When you do your practice tests, not always, but sometimes, time it. Time your reading to 1 hour. Time your writing to 1 hour. Okay, question 5. What is the maximum number of grammatical and spelling mistakes that I can make to score a band 7? Well, it's a difficult question to answer in some ways and an easy answer in other ways. If you look at the assessment criteria, the public version of the assessment criteria, and please look at this, download it. It's on the IELTS.com website. It's in our preparation materials. You'll see that for lexical resource in writing, your vocabulary, how that is assessed, it says at band 7, occasional errors. At band 8, rare errors. At band 6, some errors. At band 5, noticeable errors. Now, what do those words mean? Noticeable, some, occasional, rare? Well, it maybe depends on something like this. If you make one error repeatedly, you just misspell this word 5 times, well, that's really not a big problem. That's only one error, really. But if you misspell 5 different words Well, that's becoming probably maybe more than occasional. If you want to get a band 7, I would suggest you can't get one for lexical resource, the vocabulary, if you make more than about 7 spelling errors. And the same applies to grammar. If you have 7 sentences which have errors in them, well, that's probably means that you can't get a band 7, but you could get a band 6. The other problem is that some of these errors are not that important, but other errors are important because they impede communication. If you look at band 6, it says that the errors do not usually impede communication. That means the reader still understands what you mean. But if the reader begins to misunderstand what you mean, then that is a problem, because that means you will probably go down to a 5 for your lexical resource and also for your grammar. So improve your spelling for sure, and check that you're using the right word, because sometimes that word choice will also affect your score. Okay? All right. Number 6, how to evaluate our own essays properly using the assessment criteria. This is an interesting question because I understand it's very hard. If you're learning a language, how do you know if you have made a mistake? Well, there are things you can do. Some people think I'm going to improve my writing by writing an essay every day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. At the end of the week, 7 essays. That's not a good idea. Why? Because you have written one essay and made a bunch of mistakes. You've written another essay and made the same mistake. You've written another essay and repeated those mistakes. It's better to write that first essay and then show it to your friend. Now, your friend may be just the same as you, but maybe they're better at English tenses. Maybe they're better at spelling. Maybe they're a bit better at prepositions or using articles, and the. So your friend, even though he or she is a learner too, can still help you. They'll say, no, you should put to there, not in. You should put not the. Then rewrite it. Show it to another friend. Find a teacher as well who's able to tell you this is wrong, and that's wrong. Then rewrite your essay again. Now, do you see what's happening? At the end of that week, you won't have 7 essays. You'll have one good essay. And that essay might have started off as a 5. And at the end of the week, it's a 6 and 6.5 or a 7. Now that helps you because the week after, you start to write your essay and then you can correct it. You can say, okay, I made these mistakes before, prepositions, let me check. I made these spelling mistakes before, let me check. Continue doing that and you'll find that when you look at the assessment criteria, you will be like a band 7, only occasional errors. You will be like a band 7, that you have a range of a variety of complex structures and fewer errors. So that's how I would recommend that you look at the 2 big areas of lexical resource and grammatical range and accuracy. But that leaves the first criterion, which is task response. And for that, you can do the same. Ask your friend, have I answered every part of this question? Have I mentioned all the key features in this graph for task 1? Do all of those things and you will improve. Okay, let's continue. How do I keep the conversation going during the speaking test? Well, in the speaking test, the examiner is trained to give you time. Now, believe me, the examiner wants you to succeed. The examiner may not look really friendly, but the examiner is your friend. The examiner wants you to produce good English, and they want to give you time. The good thing about the IELTS speaking test is that you are talking to a human being with human emotions and affections who does wish you well. So that's the first thing. The examiner will help you to keep going, but won't give too much help because they want to examine your ability to keep going. So when you pause and are thinking, what do I say? What is that word I'm looking for? The examiner won't say anything. They will pause too. They will give you time. But they won't let it go on for 10 seconds. No, the examiner will prompt you eventually. They won't give you the word, but they will follow up with another question. What you can do is you can practice a few phrases that can give you time to think. If you're asked a difficult question, okay, let's think of a difficult question. Why do people complain about the weather? Right? Interesting question. You don't know. What do you say? You say, well, I'm not really sure. I don't complain very much. My wife complains. I suppose people make plans. Let me think. Well, now I really haven't answered the question yet, but I have a few phrases to keep the thing going, and you can practice that. Practicing speaking English in natural situations will help you to feel confident about using your language to fill up the spaces, but also it will give you some strategies for coming up with ideas. And as I always say, reading is helpful here. The more you read, the more you listen to other people, then the more ideas you will have about talking about difficult issues and subjects. So all of those things you can do and you can practice. But basically, you don't have to worry too much about keeping going because the examiner will help you to keep going up to a point. Okay, we have some more questions about speaking and that might help you as I explain these. This question is interesting. Is it better to have a casual style of speaking, like you would when you're talking to a colleague or a friend, or is it more appropriate to be a little formal? Well, the culture of English speakers is generally fairly informal. Why? Well, it just is. People in Australia, people in the United States, people in Britain, people in New Zealand actually value quite a lot of informality. Formality is not that important unless you're talking to the Queen or to the President of the United States, right? So that is the culture of English. So you can be quite informal, not rude, but relaxed, treating the other person as an equal. Now, I know that this is not the same in every culture. In your culture, you may have to show a lot of respect to someone like an examiner who is seen to be of a higher status or in a position of power. But don't worry too much. If you must speak formally, that's okay too, because the assessment criteria do not really talk about formality. If you look at the assessment criteria for speaking, there's nothing about formal or informal. It's all about natural English, and it's all about accurate English. So they are the most important things. And when I say natural English, I mean using words in natural combinations and delivering words, pronouncing words in a natural way. Focus on those things and don't worry too much about formality. Okay, question number 9. Should we speak in our original accent or try to mimic a foreign accent? And what foreign accent is the best? American or British? What about Australian? That's a beautiful accent. That's my accent. But you'll find Australians who have lived in America have a sort of a mixture. You'll find people from the south of Britain speak very differently to people from the north of that country. You will find that maybe a British person who has lived in America for a long time will have a funny mix of accents. So accent is not important in itself. You will speak English with an Arabic accent, with a French accent, with a Japanese accent. It's okay. In fact, it's quite charming. But the important thing is you must make the sounds of English in a pretty standard way in order to be understood. So, for example, if you are from Japan and you pronounce a ah sound oddly, if you are from Saudi Arabia and you pronounce the and the in a funny way, then that is a problem, because that will cause confusion for the listener. If you are from Korea and you want to add an extra vowel at the end of a word, that's a problem, because that will confuse the listener. So accent is not so important, but making the sounds of English in a fairly standard way, the sounds, the vowels and the consonants, is important. As long as it's understandable, that is the main thing. American or British, you may have an American teacher and you will have a bit of an American accent. You may have lived in Britain and you will have a bit of a British accent. Not a problem, but it's not really all that important. Okay, number 10. What are some quick and useful note-taking methods for speaking part 2? Well, let me remind you, speaking part 2 is where the examiner will say, and now I'm going to give you a topic and I would like you to describe blah, blah, blah. I would like you to describe a thing. I would like you to describe a person. I would like you to describe an event. I would like you to describe a place. A simple thing, really. It might be, I want you to describe something that you own, that you find is interesting, or describe a place where you like to go and meet your friends. You choose what you're going to talk about. In the first case, you might talk about your laptop. In the second case, you might talk about the hotel where you meet your friend. So you are deciding, really, what you're going to talk about. And remember, you can't ask for a different topic. You're given a topic and you must talk about it. Even if you think you have nothing to say, but you do have a lot to say, because you can practice. We help you. we give you 3 bullet points, maybe 4. We will say, well, why did you buy this thing? Why is it useful? What do you use it for? Well, that's a beginning. You can start by making notes on that subject. But when you make notes, some people write a sentence. No, don't do that. Write 1 word. Where did you buy it? City. Why is it useful? Writing. What do you use it for? Lots. I've written down 1 word only, but each of those words I could talk about for a minute at least. I suggest you practice writing down about 10 words. And here's a tip. Ask yourself these questions. Why? Where? Who? When? Ask these questions. If I lost it, if I had more money. Ask these questions. How much? Practice doing this. Practice asking yourself some questions and answering with 1-word answers. This is a skill, but it's a skill you can really practice and get good at. And if you get good at this skill, you will find that you will be able to speak for not 2 minutes. You'll be able to speak for 5 minutes. Of course, the examiner won't let you speak for 5 minutes. 2 minutes is the maximum. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you don't cover all of the points on your task card. That's okay. The examiner doesn't care. The examiner just wants to hear you talk about this topic. And you can say what you like as long as it's relevant. Okay? All right, next question. Question number 11. If I don't understand the question, can I ask the examiner to repeat the question? And will that affect my score? Well, this is a really, really interesting question because a lot of people ask it and they get a little bit nervous. Remember what I said about the examiner? The examiner wishes you well. The examiner is on your side, right? I recommend if you don't understand, ask. Because unless you ask, the examiner really cannot explain. But make sure that you ask in good English. Practice asking. Don't say, what mean that? That's bad English. Ask, I'm sorry, what exactly does that word mean? Or could you repeat that, please? Or I didn't catch that. Can you say that again? Now, these are perfectly good English phrases. And do you see what's happening? You are giving the examiner a very good example of good English while you're asking the question. So, will it affect your score? Yes, it will mean that your score will be higher because you have asked a question in a natural way, perfectly grammatical, and then you will understand what the question was about better and you'll be able to answer it better. Now, this is something that you should not do for every question. If you do it for every question, the examiner will think, well, either this person is a little bit deaf or maybe their vocabulary isn't very strong. And that means your assessment for lexical resource will go down. But you could do it 2 or 3 times. That's okay. Not 4 times, okay? All right, question number 12. My mind goes blank during the speaking test. Well, That's a problem. I can't think of the answers. What to do? Well, people's minds go blank for many different reasons. You've got to think about that. What is the reason that your mind goes blank? If this happens to you, is it because you didn't have a good sleep the night before? Have you eaten enough that day? Have you had enough to drink? Are you worried about something else? Are you thinking about what you're going to cook for dinner tonight, or that argument that you had with your wife or your husband? Put that aside. Get everything right first. Have a good night's sleep, have a good breakfast. Forget about your worries. That might help. But the other thing that will help is, I'm going back to this point I made earlier, have ideas, read, listen to podcasts, talk to your friends in English about things. Then you will have something to talk about and your mind won't go blank. And it means thinking about, in part 1 of the speaking test, what do I like? What do I do? Where do I live? My friends, my hobbies, all of those everyday things, the things that we usually use our first language to talk about. Try and use English to talk about them sometime. In part 3, you need to have ideas about more general things like the state of the environment, the future of education, problems of living in a city, the different type of housing that people live in, festivals and their purpose, sport, advertising, general ideas. And for that, you need to talk intelligently and thoughtfully with your friends. Why do we have advertising on TV, for example? Is it a good thing or a bad? How can we fix the traffic problem in our city? Read about those things. Any serious newspaper or news magazine will have a lot of information about all of those things. Have ideas, because sometimes a person goes blank because they don't have any ideas. So get ideas. Okay, question number 13, and we're nearly finished. Which part should I start first for my IELTS preparation? Can you give me some suggestions? Well, I have some suggestions about IELTS preparation. First thing is to do some practice tests so that you understand the test, so that you understand the task that is set you. But when you do your preparation, don't just say, I'm preparing reading. Try and integrate. In other words, when you read, think, how can I use this phrase in my writing? How can I use this sentence in my speaking? Have a routine. I'm going to do some work at the same time every morning or after dinner. Find a teacher or find a friend whose English is a bit better than yours, but even not even better, but just has different skills to you. Identify where you are weak and where you are strong and focus on the weaknesses. Books are useful. Preparation books, there are some good ones and some not so good ones. But I recommend anything that is published by Cambridge University is pretty good. So look for that imprint. And I say that because Cambridge produces the test. They write the IELTS test, so their preparation books are pretty accurate. Lastly, why don't you go to our IELTS preparation hub? It's called IELTS Prepare, and I'm going to show you a short video very soon on that. And that has a lot of good information in it and some resources that you can use. Okay, our last question before we look at that video is, how do you start preparation at home? Well, there are lots of online resources, okay? I'm talking about those people who have the internet reliably and a computer. Podcasts about news, about issues, social issues. Podcasts about things that you are interested in. They usually have some transcripts as well that you can download. Listening and reading. Videos on YouTube, videos on any topic. Start simple and build up to something more complex. And make sure that you do it repeatedly. Like what I said about essays. Don't just look at one video and then another video and then another video. Look at this video many times. Pause it, stop it, make a note, talk to your friends about it, rewind it. Make sure that you make it a habit to look at English language television if you can, and listen to English language radio if you can, as well as talking to people in English and listening to what they say in return. Be an active listener. Summarize what you've heard for yourself. Be an active reader. Summarize what you have read. Remember what I said? Matching headings? Become the examiner. How am I going to, what sort of heading would suit this paragraph that I just read? Repeat these things out loud. Sometimes it helps to do it while you walk. Headphones in, walking, and repeat what you're listening to. Read an English language newspaper from your town, from your country, because it will be about things that you're interested in. Now, that's what you can do even without a computer. You can also find native speakers to talk to, maybe because they're all interested in the same things as you. Cooking, or a same hobby, or sport. There are online forums as well, chat rooms. Are you a gamer? Use English when you're playing your video games. But be patient. Start easy and then make it more difficult as you go. And finally, in Australia, the ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC in Britain, the Voice of America in the US, the CBC in Canada, all of those organizations have a wealth of resources for the English language learner. And the great thing is you'll hear English with different accents and with a different slant on the language. And that's useful too in IELTS. Okay, now we're going to listen to a brief introduction to what I am really pleased to introduce to you. It is the IELTS Prepare, our preparation hub, and you'll find this fascinating.
Are you looking to start your IELTS preparation journey or struggling to achieve your desired score? IELTS Prepare is your one-stop shop for official IDP IELTS preparation materials. From articles, videos, and webinars to expert assessments, online courses, and practice tests, there's something there for everyone. With IELTS Prepare, you can browse and filter based on your needs, including specific skills, formats, and band scores. If you can't quite find what you're looking for, just use #AskIELTS on social media, or check out our Ask IELTS videos for tips and advice from IELTS experts, ambassadors, and other test takers. IELTS Prepare is constantly updated with new preparation materials and features, so make sure to check back in to see what's new. Start your IELTS journey with IELTS Prepare today. Are you?
Whoa. And that was an American accent. So it doesn't really matter. You can have an American accent, a British accent, or an Australian accent. or another one. Now, here are some more things that you have probably looked at already, but just to remind you, IELTS.idp.com, our Facebook page, put questions there, read the answers that are there, TikTok, and next week there is a brilliant performance on TikTok that we're going to bring you, same time, same day, but next week. IDP.com about news and articles, practical tips, and also our YouTube videos, which are all very useful, especially for speaking. As I said, there is a bonus TikTok session next week, and I'm looking forward to that, and I think that it will be very useful as well. And that is where you can ask questions in a live setting. Okay, I'm ready, KD, for some questions if you have any.
Definitely, we have lots for you. And thank you, Dawn, for helping us answer so many questions.
Good.
Answers and advice were amazing as usual. So we let's get through as many as possible. So let's get started. So hi, Dawn. There is a word limit for the writing task. So will I be penalized if I exceed the word count?
No, you can write as many words as you like, and the examiner will read them all. But I recommend that you don't write too many words. Some people think the more I write, the better. No, 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 no. That is not true, because the more you write, the more chances you have of making a mistake, the more errors you will make. Probably you will be less relevant, some of the stuff that you write about, and you won't have time to check your work.
Thank you, Dawn. The next question is for writing task 2. We are usually asked for our opinion, so whether we agree or disagree about something. So do we only state our opinion, or do I provide points?
I didn't hear that last little bit, Katie. Or do I provide what?
Do I only state my opinion, or do I provide both viewpoints?
I would recommend, as a general rule, to provide both viewpoints. You're not always asked to do that. The simplest question in an IELTS writing task 2 is, to what extent do you agree or disagree? And you can answer that question easily by saying, I agree for these reasons. You always have to have an opinion. You always have to have a position on something. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, etc.? What is the reason for this? What are the solutions? You have to give your opinion always. And as a rule, you should mention the opposite opinion, but you're not always asked to. Sometimes you are asked to. They will say you'll be asked to address both views and give your own opinion. And in that case, you should look at what you believe, look at the opposite belief in equal measure, okay? But if it's just to what extent do you agree or not, then you don't have to spend much time on the opposite view.
Great, thanks, Dawn. Someone asked about the speaking test. Is it okay to pause while thinking about what to say?
Yes, it's natural. Remember, the speaking test tries to be a natural interaction between two flesh and blood human beings. Now, when you're talking to your friend, your colleague, your boss, you may pause, but will you pause for 10 seconds? No, you will pause though. Try and make the pauses not too long. Okay, I'll give you an example. Are you ready, Katie?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that pause, did you catch that? That was about 1.5 seconds. That's probably about as far as I would go. And going back to something I said earlier, try and fill it in with good English, like, well, that's an interesting question. Let me think. I haven't thought about that before, etc.
That's a great tip. So another one from someone asking about about the speaking test. If I don't know any facts to answer a question in the test, can I make up one or two facts that are believable?
I think it's easier to just tell the truth. But was this the speaking test or the writing test?
The speaking test.
Well, look, I don't think you really have to make up things in the speaking test, because you're not really asked to support your opinion that rigorously, that is so substantially. In the writing, that's a bit different, because we do want you to support your view. And you might make up something. You might say, yes, this happened to my father. It didn't really, for example. In the speaking, I think it's better to try and be honest, because if I'm having this genuine relationship with the examiner, if I say, well, look, I really don't have very much experience of this thing. You know, big cities, I come from the country. But, and then say, well, then that really, you are using good English to describe your lack of evidence, and that's all you need.
Great, thank you. Next question. My problem is the reading section. When I move from one paragraph to another, I tend to get distracted. Any tips for me, Don?
Well, don't get distracted. That's my tip. But it goes back to what I said earlier. Why do you get distracted? Why do you go blank? Make sure that you tick off all those things I said. Have you had a good sleep? Have you had a good breakfast? Have you forgotten about the argument you had with your friend? Have you got to the venue in time? Plenty of time. Are you relaxed? Have you had enough to drink? Okay, done all of that. Then you might find that you can concentrate a little bit better. And concentration also requires practice. Do a few more practice tests and have a strategy, because if you have a strategy, that can also focus you. For example, with reading paragraphs and matching headings to paragraphs, like the example we had earlier. Okay, my strategy is to start with the smallest paragraph. My strategy is to see how many times a particular word is mentioned in this thing. My strategy is to read carefully the first and last sentence in each paragraph. Because I have developed a few skills, or strategies, well, maybe that will stop my mind wandering too.
That's a great tip. Next one. How do I improve my writing skills, especially when analyzing graphs? I sometimes find it very difficult to understand graphs. Is there any suggestions from you to how I can improve?
That's a very good question. And I know from my experience, I've seen some people who obviously have never really looked at graphs very much because they just don't get it. And that might be because their education was focused on something else. You know, they were sort of studying linguistics, or they were studying philosophy or something. Those people, seriously, those people who have a more technical or an economics background probably find reading graphs easier. But the challenge then is for you to get more experience with reading and looking at graphs. And you can do this quite easily, because any serious newspaper or news magazine or a website that has statistics in it, or a business section of a newspaper or magazine will always have graphs. And you can Google them. You can, Google important words like the percentage of women in particular industries, or the proportion of young people who catch COVID, for example. That will produce a whole bunch of graphs. Practice it, do it every day, and you will find that you will begin to understand how graphs work, and that will help you. You can also make your own graphs. This is something when I was a teacher, I used to get my students to do, ask questions, and how many people use the bus every day, things like that. You can probably produce a lot of this material yourself so that you understand it more intimately. And can I add one last thing? Sometimes an academic task 1 is not a graph, it's a process. And you can practice this as well. And the example I like to use is when you're doing something that you like to do regularly, think about it as a process. It might be cooking. First, I will chop up the vegetables, then I will saute the vegetables, then I will add certain spices, then I'll do something else, and then this, and then this, and then I will serve it. That is a perfectly adequate academic task 1 process. So think about the way that these things are in your own life, and then you might understand them more intimately.
That's great. I'm actually taking notes for myself.
Your English is pretty good.
No, I'm really bad at graphs and pie charts. Great. Next one. Should I use idioms in the speaking test?
There are different types of idioms. Sometimes there are idioms that are too difficult for a non-native speaker to use because they are completely illogical, right? And sometimes they can only be used in the negative. A good example of this is if you're in a small room, you say to your friend, there's not enough room to swing a cat. Now, a native speaker of English will understand that that means it's a very small room. But you can't say in a big room, oh, there is enough room to swing a cat. Now, this is a good example of where you're trying to adapt a fixed idiom to a new purpose, and it doesn't work. So don't use those idioms. But idiomatic language is natural language, and that means using phrasal verbs, using the correct prepositions with particular verbs and nouns. That is the idiom that you're after. And the more you can do that, the better. So learn those things. And when you hear them, when you hear somebody say, I got turfed out of the hotel last night because I drank too much, turfed out of the hotel. Very good. Write it down. Talk to your friends about it, okay?
That's a great one. Next question. How can I stop making spelling mistakes?
Practice your spelling is the short answer. But I think reading is, well, look, it depends. I am a visual learner. Not everybody is a visual learner. I agree. Okay, some people rely on listening to things. Some people rely on actually performing and doing speaking and moving around. But if I see a word written correctly enough times, I will know if I am not spelling it correctly. I am not the best speller in the world, but I can recognize mostly if I am not spelling something correctly. And on that point, if I was writing an essay for IELTS and I wasn't sure about the spelling of a particular word, I might just choose a different word that expresses the same idea. So I would try and minimize my spelling mistakes that way. Okay.
Thank you, Don. I think we're down to our last question. So someone asked, my aunt took an IELTS test many years ago, more than a decade, but she was able to save all the practice materials and passed it on to me. Question, will those materials be enough for me to prepare for my test? Will I be required to buy new IELTS materials before I take an IELTS test?
Those materials will still be relevant. The only change that I can think of in terms of writing, I think in the past, the instructions for academic task 1 were write a report for a university lecture. Now it's summarize the information. It's a small change, but the types of tasks in writing, the types of questions in the reading and the types of passages, the types of listening tasks as well, and the sorts of speaking tasks are really much the same as they were 10 years ago.
That wraps up our session today, Don. So thank you so much for providing clear and amazing answers to all our test takers' burning IELTS questions.
Well, thank you, KD. You're fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Don. And to all of you who joined us today, we truly appreciate your time. If we didn't get the chance to answer your questions, make sure to message us directly and we will answer them as soon as we can. And as what Don shared with you earlier, he will be back next Thursday on the 5th of August at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time for Ask Me Anything session on our TikTok channel. And our handle is @IELTS. So for another full hour, he'll be answering questions from the comments covering any aspect of the IELTS test with the goal of helping you to achieve your desired score. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.